Hello YouTube, welcome back to the shop. On this episode of What's in Yours, we will be going over the settings in the speed controller on the handlebars of the Nanrobot D5 Plus 2.0, and we will be doing that by going through the manual. Let's get started. Okay folks, here we are with the throttle controller, and we're going to go through some of the display settings on the controller before we get into the sub menu. So right when you turn on your controller, you're going to see a time. It is a counter. It'll tell you how long you've been on your scooter. You hit the mode button and it will go to the next thing, which is trip. That is how far you've went on this particular ride. Next is your odometer. That's total miles accumulated. That only changes as you move the scooter, and it doesn't reset after you turn off the controller. Next is your voltage. So as far as right now, my scooter has 55 volts, and this is a timer, and it starts at 2 hours and then will decrease as you're on the scooter, and it's continuously on. So right now that's 1 minute. Now to change the different speed modes, with right now I have it at 3. You're just going to hit the power button and you're going to hit mode. So that's the slowest, number 1, medium speed, and then the highest speed. And if you just leave it alone, it will just go back and stop flashing. Now, if you, let's say you go to number 2 and you want to stop flashing faster, you can just hit the power button like that. So that's it on the regular display. Of course, you have your battery life here and your speed there. And right now I have mine in miles per hour. So let's go into the sub menu of the manual. We're going to go through settings P0 all the way through P10. All right. So let's start with P0. Wheel diameter in inches. Do not change it at will. Default is 10. So we're going to hit both of these buttons at the same time, and you'll see we'll come into the P0 submenu function. Now, if you don't do it, if you don't mess with the controller, it quickly goes back to its normal display. So bear with me if it keeps doing that. There's nothing much I can do about it. But right now I have mine set at 6 on the wheel diameter, because that matches, me changing that to 6 inches matches my GPS speed the best. All right. See, if you don't hit them exactly at the same time, it looks like you're going to want to change the speed mode. But okay, so there's P1. Now we're going to hit mode again. That's going to go to P1. That is your voltage. P1. Default is 43 volts. Now, you could change that setting. Sorry about that. You could change that setting and increase that minimum voltage value if you don't want your scooter cutting off exactly at 43 volts. Now, that's not as that won't drain your battery completely, but it will get pretty close. So if you want some maybe added battery protection, you can increase that voltage, just say like 44 or 45, and then that will shut down the scooter and protect your battery. But I run mine down to, I rarely run it down to 43, but that's what I keep it at. So I'm gonna, and you hit the power button to decrease. And see, it timed out on us there. So I'm going to just turn that back on. Hit the 2 buttons again. And there we go. So now we went through P0, P1, minimum voltage. P2 is going to be the setting of 10. And it says that in the menu. Magnetic poles in the hub motor, do not change it at will. Default is 10. So I'm assuming that's your hall sensors. Now I was going through the wiring the other day, and I made a video about it, but I didn't typically see the 5 wires for each motor for the hall sensor. Maybe I didn't chase them down enough within the scooter, but it's interesting because I'm going to bring up another point here. And of course, for those of you that don't know, hall sensors detect the magnetic rotation inside the motor, and that's what gives you your speed reading. So you don't really want to change that. I mean, if you change the value on that, excuse me, if you change the value, it will affect your speedometer, FYI. But since typically it's 10, I just keep it at 10. All right, so P3 is speed sensor function. Do not change it at will. Okay, so here's where we got some contradicting issues here. P3 says speed sensor function. Do not change it at will. Default is 0. But if we go into the controller, and P3, it's set at 1. If you try to change that, it won't let you do it. So why do they have this set at 1 in the controller, but in the manual, it says default is 0? Now, a speed sensor typically, at least on like e-bikes and even the off-the-shelf speedometers you can buy at Walmart or whatever the case may be, it's usually those little magnets that you attach to the spokes of your bike, and then you hook the sensor up to, let's say, the fork of the bike, and as the tire rotates, that magnet is going to go past that sensor, and that's how you're going to reach your speed, and you can adjust that accordingly to whatever your wheel diameter size and things like that. So if they're going by the hall sensors and a speed sensor, but it's saying 1 and the default is 0 and you can't change it in the controller, I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know what's actually reading the speed. If anybody has any insight on that, leave it down in the comments so we can talk about it, maybe figure it out together. I'm going to email Nanrobot and try to get a better answer, but sometimes their answers are a little too general. So, we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. So let's move along. P4, speedometer in kilometers or miles. So turn the controller back on. Press both of the buttons at the same time. And we're going to P4. Now, I have mine at 1, which is miles per hour. But in other countries, you're going to use kilometers. And I don't know what default is 0. I haven't played around with the 0 setting. Maybe it doesn't do the speed at all. Not sure. All right, so P5 is non-kickstart and kickstart. 0 is non-kickstart, 1 is kickstart, 0 is default. So basically, kickstart and non-kickstart, what that does is help you not accidentally hit the throttle, which I've done and sent my scooter flying because I had it on dual motors. Kind of scraped up the side because I thought I was hitting the brake. But basically what that does is when you get on your scooter, once it gets up to about 2 or 3 miles an hour from you kick pushing it, then the throttle will come on. I don't like that. I like to just get on my scooter and go. So I keep my function set at 1. So let's look at that again. P5. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep it set at 0 so I don't have to kick start it. 1, if you have it set at 1, you're going to have to kick start it. And some people might like that safety feature. It doesn't really bother me. So, all right, let's go to P6. Turn on and off constant speed control, cruise control. So that's P6. I have mine set to 0, non-cruising. But if I know if I'm going on long rides, I will go on. I will put it on cruise control. And that's if you hold the throttle down for about 6 or 7 seconds, it will stay at that speed, whatever it's reading. And it kind of helps you out with your hand getting cramps and going numb if you're riding for a really long time. And that really helps. And also, too, I don't know if anybody caught that, but P6, non-cruising is 0, 1 equals cruising. So don't know what cruising is. I didn't look up the definition, or maybe it could be just a misprint, but whatever. Moving along. P7, power start, normal start. I've played around with this setting several times. I didn't see a difference in either one. So you can change that to 1, or you can change it back to 0. I just keep it on 0 because Powerstar didn't do anything for this particular scooter. So I don't know exactly what that setting is. If anybody has any more information on that, please leave it down in the comments. I would appreciate it. P8 is power adjustment, 0 to 100. So let's go in here. All right, got to turn it back on. Go right in here and go to P8, and it's set at 100. Now you can decrease this number, and let's say you decrease it down to about 75, then that's going to give you about 75% power. So I don't know when you would use that. I've never had to use it as an adult, but maybe you have a kid that you don't want them going over a certain speed. You can get into that setting and, bring those numbers down. And that way the scooter, no matter what they do, it won't go over a certain speed. You can play around with that. I guess that's a little bit of a safety feature. So that's how that works. Next, we're going to go to P9, electronic brake strength. 0 is no electronic brake. 1 is weaker for electronic brakes, and then 2 is stronger for electronic brakes. So everybody that has a scooter knows that 2 is really strong, and when you're going fast or even slow, you hit the brakes and you have it on number 2, the scooter almost wants to throw you off. It's a little bit too powerful. But what I find for myself is 0 is too weak, 2 is too strong. 1 works out the best for me. It's not too strong. It's not too weak. I know how to brace myself when I'm getting ready to stop. You kind of want to bend your knees, put your weight back towards the end of the scooter. That really helps you out. But that's one of those settings that it's whatever you feel comfortable with. All right, and then the last setting is P10, which this controller does not have on it. It just goes to P0. But in the manual it says P10, function to be determined, reserved function. So, all right, folks. Well, that's it for the speed controller on the handlebars of the Nanrobot D5 Plus 2.0. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll try to get back to you when I can. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, please subscribe, like, share, hit the bell notification button. And until next time, ride safe.